Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Word of Lorgar, a Warhammer 40,000 Chaos Space Marine YouTube channel based around the Word Bearers, our favorite faction. In today's video, we are going to be talking about how to convert your World Eater army into the Word Bearers, since all World Eaters are trash now. So I am your host today, Dark Apostle Dara, and I'm joined here by my co-host, Galvorback Jack. Video's coming up next. All right, everyone, what's up? Hope you enjoyed that fun little cheeky intro. I think poking a little bit of fun at everything that is after going on today. So, Jack, how are you feeling after burning your army?
Yeah, good. I'm just coming down from the high of the fumes.
Yeah, nice, nice.
So some stuff I have just repainted the trim black, so I didn't get the memo. I'm actually going Red Corsairs.
Okay, cool, cool, cool.
So
Sorry, yeah, it's black or silver. It
yeah,
just depends on whichever one you do. Yeah.
this is how the channel's diversifying, guys. We're expanding out to Chaos
Yes.
Space Marines in general now.
Yeah, a lot of people were asking us, like, do some new stuff, cover some different legions. So what we've decided to do is scrap the World Eaters completely. Jack's going Corsairs. I'm going to go with Word Bears. I don't know. Jamie will probably just spray his whole army black and call it Black Legion or something. And that's it. Yeah, that's just the vibe going forward. I burned my army and it exploded because there was so much oil paint and thinner on it.
Just a
So that
crater
is a
in
giant hole.
Southeast Ireland now.
Yeah. Cork has been detached from Ireland.
Strategic
Yeah.
around the
Okay, so let's get into the video, right?
yeah.
So everyone's probably wondering what's going on, what our takes are and stuff. Obviously, we are here to talk about the reveals that happened last night at the Warhammer Grand Narrative Final. I can't remember whatever it's called. You all know by now what's going on. Jamie is not here, unfortunately. He is currently at an RTT battling it out against the finest of Gemhammer. And I'm sure they're all asking him, I bet you like World Eaters.
What do you
And
think
he's
the
definitely not sick of
reveals?
hearing that question. Are you excited for the new models, Jamie? But anyway, yeah, so we thought we'd give our takes, our opinions on, I guess, a little bit about the reveals. So yeah, we're going to structure this like basically we're going to talk about the reveals themselves, specifically the models and what we've seen. We're going to talk about the reaction around the reveals, our own personal reactions and the community reaction, and kind of, maybe how we have some slightly different takes to everyone else, and how you can kind of look at this in a certain way. And then we're going to close it off by talking a little bit about what we hope for the future and things coming down the road. But yeah, so Jack, I think let's kick it off with talking about the models themselves. So what did obviously, so we're in Europe. We did not stay up to watch the reveals. And yeah, so when you woke up today, I assume it was the first thing you checked. What did you
Yeah.
think when you saw
So
these new models? What did you see first, and what was your impression?
So I woke up at 6:30 this morning. So 2.5 hours after, well, an hour and a half after the reel ended, I guess. The first thing I saw was actually the God of fucking Dark Mech thing, the the horror show thing that was, which is an awesome model, and I
Yeah,
really
GW designers really said, cool, no filter on this one.
yeah. This
It's
is
just gonna look fucked up. Its face is fucking scary, dude. That
yeah.
shit is
No,
messed up.
so that was the first thing I saw, and then I kind of like moved past it because I was like, cool, there's going to have been some worldies. And then actually I went to the rumors channel on the Discord because I was like, okay, there's going to be some pictures there. And then I kept scrolling up because I assumed I'd find the start of where the where the pictures were, and then I gave up on that when I got to 400 messages unread and just went to walk on. And so I think at the top of it's the 8 bound at the top of the article, or the first couple of models. And then the Exalted 8 bound with Buzzsaw Hand himself, who I love and is now my child. Buzzsaw Hand is the best.
Nice,
Also,
nice.
Chainglaive Man is also good, but I just love fucking Chainglaves. So,
Yeah, the Jaglaive guy is pretty twisted. He's quite nice.
but then yeah, the Jackals as well. Like I love I love that they've gone. You're an assault army. All your models are going to be really fucking dynamic. Like
Yeah.
the Jackal models all look like they're charging forwards or they're going absolutely crazy, like blood mad, whatever.
One thing that I love just on that, one thing I really love about the Jackal models is that it really looks like the weapons that they're using are too heavy for them, right? Because you can see in the way that they're swinging them, a lot of their arms are like back further than they
Like
should be.
or borderline hyperextending and stuff like that.
Yeah, like as in it's like, oh, is that person's like shoulder about to pop out, you
Yeah.
know? And
It,
I think that's awesome. Like the weapons are too big, but not in the 40K way where it's like
yeah.
they're too big, but they're still holding them fine. It's like, no, these are too big and they're struggling with them, but they're making the
Yeah.
best of it. And I just think the dynamism
Yeah.
in those guys is like
Sort of
it sets them apart.
Night Goblin fanatics kind of vibes.
Exactly, yeah, that's exactly it. It's not just like they're not like cultists with like close combat weapons or something, you know. It's like they've been given oversized shit from
Yeah.
the world leaders and just told like do your best with this. And they're doing their best.
I forgot the other. Going back to the eight. I think it's the normal 8 bound. The guy who has a chainsword and was like, "Nah, this chainsword isn't doing enough work," and just strapped a cleaver to the end of it as well.
Yeah,
It's
the
like,
tracer
okay,
cleaver.
a tracer cleaver. Yeah,
It's so good. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, for sure.
I really like those. Actually, after those, the Lord on Juggernaut was a bit of a letdown. I think I prefer
Really
Artis. I don't think the Lord on
interesting.
Juggernaut looks too dynamic. Like, cause I was saying to you, I think it's an alternate Juggernaut posing because Invocatus is like there's 1 foot down on the mount, and so he looks
Hmm.
like charging forwards, whereas the Lord is like 3 feet down, which means he's kind of standing forwards, and that combined with like the plasma pistol or the pistol arm just makes him look a bit more, I don't know, less like he's charging, I guess.
Yeah, yeah, I get that.
Uh,
It
I,
definitely seems like he's less in motion as
I
such.
I should say that I only like him less in the context of the reveals today, and I fucking love all three of the other sets. So, like, I still like him, and he's still a lot nicer than a lot of the models that we currently have, that I currently have. But in the context of the 8 bound, which I'm gonna buy as many as we can fit in an army, and
Hmm.
jackals, who are probably going to replace all of my cultists just because models.
Nice. Yeah.
um, yeah, like in those contexts, so the new models all look amazing. The cover art goes hard.
Cover art goes very hard. I saw a lot of people were very excited just to put it in polite terms about the cover art.
So the cover art looks good. I'm really hyped to see the limited edition one, the collector's edition one that they do, because I think
There's that one guy in the bottom left on the cover art who is just on a whole different spread of drugs compared to everyone
yeah.
else. He is just like whatever he's on, the rest of the army needs to get on that shit because he's having a great time.
Yeah, and then obviously at the end of the article, well, at the end of the video, and then the end of the article as well, they go into sort of stuff that we're definitely keeping. So like Land Raiders, Terminators, and Demon Engines were the things that they said, I think. Which is cool. Like it's good to get confirmation on that. Clearly they've seen some of the fucking rumors around the internet about, oh, we're not having any Terminators of any kind, and people giving that like actual credence. They've decided to squash that, which is a nice touch. They didn't have to do that, so that's nice. I still don't love the really clean color scheme for World Eaters, and I think it comes out more in Terminators. But
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
personal preference. That's me griping about not being painted in white and blue. So
I think um, the red and brass just really ain't working anymore
no,
on these promo images, to be honest.
especially not
Yeah,
when it's bright, like really bright, and like
no, yeah, they need to go for a deeper red, something like the Word Bearers red, I think.
yeah,
And like you can, it's kind of awkward because you can actually see on the promo art or picture they put up where it's like the Terminators coming out of the Land Raider
yeah,
and the new 8 bounds are alongside them, and they're definitely different shades of red.
yeah.
It's a much richer and deeper red that they have on the 8 bound, which is a little bit awkward. But here we are, you know, I guess the heavy metal team doesn't have time to paint everything, which is fair enough, right?
And I guess for context, like they did go into the lore of the various units a little bit. There were a few little like tidbits about each unit. So like
Hmm.
The 8-pounder, obviously, for anyone who doesn't know, Chaos Space Marines or Berserkers with 8 blood letters forced into them. And then the Exalted 8-pound are 8-pound where the Marine has won. And like they used a phrasing. What was the phrasing? They said like,
Harmonious. They
yeah,
fight in harmony, I
they've
think.
stopped
Yeah.
fighting each other and now they're just fighting.
I think it's really cool because it's like the opposite of the possessed, right? Where the possessed you have a Neverborn that takes over a Marine soul.
Yeah,
This is you have the Marine taking over a bunch of demon souls, which I'm like,
Marine
if
fighting
anyone's
back.
gonna do it, man, it's the World Eaters because
Yeah,
that shit fucking goes hard.
yeah,
I've seen people saying that like, it's a little bit weird that like, you shove 8 demons into a Marine and this is the only change that you see. And I do get that. I think
I
it's a
get
little
that.
bit weird. Yeah, because
Yeah.
it's like if 8 demons brings this change, how
Why,
do you
why,
get to the
why
possessed?
possessed?
Are they just like, all right, man, here comes fucking Blue Horror number 27, and we got another like 30 demonettes in tow, and they're coming in next. Your man is just like, man, please, like, I can only get so many of these guys inside me. So it's a little bit weird, but also I think it's kind of representative of the fact that the world leaders themselves are so strong and like are able to fight, and then you have these instances like the Exalted 8-bound where it's like they triumph and they're in control of the demon, and it almost feels, at least in my headcanon, I don't know how true this is or not, but it's like the mutations and the demonic changes that they have, that's like forced out, or like the choice of the Marine to like kind of be like, all right, it's like it's
Yeah,
morphin time,
or
and he
like
just like
they're,
pops a
they're,
blade
they're
out.
like they're like subconscious is I just want to get bigger and stronger to kill, and that's why they're was it you pointed out they're massive traps on one of
Yeah, traps for the trap gods.
deadlifting 8 days
It's
a week.
disturbing. It's the I think it's the guy with it might even be Chainsword Cleaver Man, I think. I'm pretty sure it's him.
Yeah,
Because you can see down into, also one touch that I really fucking love about the 8-bound is if you look at them from like a kind of a top-down view, it's like the Legion symbol is their gorgeous. It's so cool. Like, because it has like the fanged maw coming in around
yeah.
their head. I'm like, man, that shit goes hard, That's so fucking cool in my opinion.
And then yeah, the other little thing I picked up on from Exalted 8-bound in particular was one of their weapons is going to be a mutated chain fist, which
Yes, yeah.
uh,
The
I
word I've heard floating around for that is a lacerator. I believe that is the name of the weapon.
cool. I'm hoping that a beefed up chain fist doesn't just mean a chain fist without the -1, because
I
that
mean,
would
that's
be
fine.
underwhelming.
That's fine by me.
It
But
would
I
be,
guess
it
because
would
like a
be
chain fist
fine,
is
but
like
it'd be
strength
underwhelming.
times 2, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, but what if they're base strength 6?
But what if
Like,
they do 3 damage?
hey, I
No,
don't really mind
I
that much.
do.
I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. We'll see. We'll see. We'll see.
Yeah, no, yeah. Obviously, that is like wild speculation.
Yeah, for sure.
So there's that, which is cool. Lacerator would be a very cool name. I would love that.
Yeah, I think that's what it was called. There's definitely one of their weapons is called the lacerator anyway, but I can't remember
Yeah.
if that's the exalted or the regular 8-bands.
One of them. One of the presenters also mentioned that it was probably the strongest combat unit in the game. So we'll wait and see if that happens.
So you know the meme where it's like, "Am I a joke to you?"
Yeah,
I imagine that's like Angron when they said that. Because it's like, all
yeah.
right, guys, remember that this guy is the one who's supposed to be the
It might,
strongest
it
combat
might,
unit in the game.
they might have meant it as like unit rather than like Lord of War. There's a couple of reasons they could have said it like that.
There's a lot of things they can say differently and better on those shows.
I'm just kind of like, I wonder what that stat line looks like, and is it like, will they have good synergy shit like that? That's just how my brain is.
So
Like,
the only thing I know about them, stat line wise, is that they move 9. That is
nice.
one of the things.
I
Yeah.
would that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then we obviously had jackals, and so the law around them was they're hopped up on friends on, and also specifically 8 drops of World Eater blood is mixed in.
Yeah, man, like they're fucking cutting their friends on with World Eater Marine blood. Like that shit goes hard.
So they're going to be nuts as well.
Which kind of ties into the other thing that I heard about these guys, which was that they can choose to take, I think it's mortal wounds on themselves or something, and then they get more strength, which I guess is representative of these like stim vats, like just hopping them up and stuff. They also have an icon, which is cool.
Yeah.
Will the icon give -1 AP to these guys when they charge?
I don't
Big
know.
if true. Big if true.
I don't know.
And they also have the big bruiser dude, the Dishonored, I think.
He's the unit champ, I think.
So weird choice of a name. Weird choice of a name. I wonder what the lore is around him.
That'd be cool.
Because he has plugs on his arms. which look like the ones that Marines have.
Mm.
And I wonder, is he like a failed initiate?
Failed initiate. Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
That'd be really cool.
Because he has the body glove plugs that Marines normally have. So yeah, I don't know. Who knows?
So if he's the source of the blood for them or something like that, that'd be cool.
That would be cool. Yep. I love that he just has like a chain with a bunch of heads and an iron cage.
Yeah. So I really like that. They didn't mention much about the Lord on Juggernaut. I think we got some stuff about Invocatus. We talked about Invocatus before. We probably don't need to put too much time to that.
So one weird thing about this Lord on the Juggernaut, right? He doesn't have the butcher's nails. Nice work, GW.
That's pointed out.
I'm pretty sure that's a massive fuck up on whoever sculpted that model, because what's up with that?
Like, I mean, there might be alternate head options. Not everyone likes the dreadlock look, right? So there might
be.
And most kits are coming with like however many head options nowadays. So my guess would be one helmet, one unhelmet, and one with nails.
Yeah, I just find it really weird that they would have that. But hey, who knows?
Okay.
Who knows?
So those are
his helmeted head is
I like
hard. I like that one.
I'm probably going to go with his helmeted head because I hate painting.
If I decide to make Invocatus, I'm going to give him that head instead of Invocatus's head, because I hate Invocatus's head so much.
Oh, he's got the top knot thing, hasn't he? Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, he's just the whole. Yeah, it's whatever. We talked about him. Yeah.
So should we go into the very balanced internet takes?
Okay, so moving on from gushing about the new models, which is obviously great.
And cover art, because the cover art
just goes hard. Yeah. Like the cover art is supreme. For anyone who's looking to paint World Leaders in a grimdark 40k color scheme, just use that as reference material, because like, what more do you need? That is literally, I would say, probably singly the best artwork I've ever seen of the World Leaders in anything.
Yeah, they've been doing some really good stuff, like alongside the reveals. I was noticing, because I was just collecting everything like from the various Warcom articles earlier. They've done some really good other pieces, but I would agree the cover art.
The one of Invocatus on his Juggernaut coming forward through that Rune City goes pretty hard as well. But yeah, like, I mean, look, so the models are gorgeous. They're really, really nice. No question about it. I'm very excited to get my hands on them.
Most people agree with that as well, right?
Despite people say. Yeah, people are somewhat divided on the 8-bound, and I see that. I can see why they're not necessarily for everyone, because they are quite a distinct thing. Like, if you're not really into that possession kind of vibe, it's but there's lots of ways to make cool looking 8-bound that aren't necessarily these guys.
Yeah.
And them being the size that they are on 40 mils means you have a plethora of options for building cool ones. But we're going to get into that in maybe another video or something else like that. But what we're going to talk about now is we're going to start with the overall community reaction to not necessarily the models, but the elephant in the room, right? The potential leak of points and unit selection, the army composition as a whole, the fact that this is kind of what we're looking at potentially for the World Leaders, how kind of people have reacted to that, and what myself and Jack think about that, and kind of how we're feeling about the whole thing on a more meta scale. Not necessarily like, wow, that guy looks cool, because like, okay, we've covered it. They look fucking awesome. But let's talk about the army and the codex coming out and what it's going to mean. So Jack, this is your baby. You have been having a tough day. I mean, like, I had my moment in the sun, right? Over the last, like, since the points league came out, I've been like, yo guys, these are real. And you know, I'm a prophet. It's true. Everything I say comes true.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not really what this is all about. So Jack, the community reaction has been, I think it's fair to say, pretty knee-jerky.
Well, considered, level-headed, all of these things.
100%. It's the internet, man. Yeah, look, it's been pretty wild out there today, especially online. Really, really wild. And you know, emotions are high, and that's fair enough. Everyone is completely entitled to their way of looking at this release, and everyone is going to feel a little bit different about it because of the amount that they have invested in the army and in the different areas that they have invested in the army as well, right? So it's been pretty crazy. People are at each other's throats because it's kind of like, well, my take is right and yours is wrong.
Yeah.
But it's like at the end of the day, your take is very much exclusive to your own personal collection. So let's turn it over to Jack. Jack, why don't you tell us a little bit about the community reaction today, how you think it's been perceived, and just run me through. Give me a little bit of this.
So, obviously, a lot of people have, following on from the points leak last week. There's been a lot of people who have taken the fact that 8-bound are a thing, exalted 8-bound are also a thing. The unit sizes are have roughly been confirmed. Jackals being a thing as well. They came out of sort of nowhere, I feel. We all thought it was going to be like Khorne or something like that. Beastmen, I don't know, something like that. So Jackals has come relatively out of left field. So it's pretty much those three things having come true, and people have taken that as,
and the Lord and the Juggernaut as well, right?
yeah, but like I mean, we knew for a while that he was coming before the points league.
That's true.
Because
Yeah,
of
that's true.
Invocatus and the alternate kit. People have taken those 3-4 things being true and being on the point sheet as absolute confirmation that the points leak is 100% true. Nothing else is happening. It is just the points leak, and that is it. That's all we're getting. And the thing people in the Discord will know, the thing that has been tilting me in a good-natured kind of way has been, so that points leak is real, not fake, then, every 10 minutes this morning. And I mean, do we want to go into community reaction a bit more, or do we want to just my reaction to that?
I think okay. What we can say is that a lot of people are very invested in this faction for a lot of different reasons. There's a lot of love here, and there's a lot of expectation. A lot of people wanted specific things from this, and maybe they're not necessarily coming right now. And I'm going to talk about kind of what I think about all that when we get to it. But the community as a whole has kind of decided a lot of things, and it's like Jack said, just because we've seen what we've seen doesn't necessarily mean that the points leak is actually true, even though like it looks like it could be, and that is it, like that's a thing, you know, it could be real. But it also could still not be real. Like, just because we've seen these things doesn't necessarily.
There also is the room for grayness, right? It can be partially true and partially not true, or partially true and incomplete.
I think that's the most important thing is, and it's like you said it earlier today in Discord, is like, there's nuance to this. It's not black and white. It's not like either 100% true or 100% fake. Like, there could be more to this. Are we going to see more unique World Leader units revealed before the Codex drops? Almost certainly not. They more or less said that. Are we going to see more units from the existing Chaos Space Marine book in our Codex? Potentially. Who knows? Like, we don't really know. We know some units that are going to be there. But we can't say for certain that the points leak is the exclusive list of what is and isn't going to be there. So don't go melting down your Raptors yet. I've already burned mine, but that's a separate issue. So yeah, like, obviously people are kind of like, I painted X and now it doesn't exist anymore, so I am angry. And that's fine. I have 3 Lord Discordants. Fucking feels bad, bro. But like, here we are.
25 warp
talents. Like, I have 30 warp talents and 30 raptors.
Yeah.
Everyone's got something. Everyone lost something, unless you're brand new. And like, you know what? It does fucking suck. Should it happen? Probably not. Why are GW doing it? I don't know. Is it dumb? Yes. But like, these are all things that we already kind of knew. And let's be honest, like, have said a lot over the last few months to a year. Me and Jamie have been saying on the channel, in Discord, expect these things to happen. Expect to lose stuff. It's going to suck. Don't go out buying X, Y, and Z because we don't know if it's going to be there. Like, we all knew that the Chaos Space Marine Codex was going to be ours for only a very specific amount of time, right? And like, I do still just think it's really, really dumb that like units can just disappear from your collection like this. There are other things you can do with them, like run them as different legions or whatever. Like I'm doing the creations of Gal and Surlak as like a creations of Bile spin-off, whatever. That's cool. Like you can do shit like that. It doesn't obviously make it feel better for everyone. And like, yeah, it does suck, and I get why people are angry. But like I would say like let's all take a moment to remember the high elf player from Warhammer Fantasy Battles who burned his entire collection and everyone laughed at him because now the old world is coming out.
Yeah.
So let's take a moment to remember that kind of stuff and not think emotionally. Let's think logically here. Like we could get some units come back, right? And we're going to talk about that in a little bit as well. But like this isn't necessarily sky's falling time right now. And even if some of your units do stop being part of the World Eaters Codex for now, does not mean the end of the world either. Like there's still lots of things you can do with them. I'm going to put together a hobby video where I'm going to talk about all the different ways that you can convert some of your current units that may not be valid into units that will be valid. So there's going to be a lot of stuff about all that, and that's fine. So like I can understand that in this moment the community is very, very heated and emotional, and it's not necessarily everything that everyone wanted it to be. And like that does suck. Like let's not mince words here. Like we're all a little bit disappointed about how this release has been done. And I'm going to talk a little bit on my take about why I think the release has happened this way. But yeah, look, I think we can wrap up the community reaction by saying like a lot of people are unhappy. Some people are probably coming at it at a pretty unreasonable angle. There's definitely people out there that are trolling and going through these forums and chats and whatever, trying to get a reaction from people. But let's try and take a moment to step back and say, okay, how can we reevaluate this? Is this necessarily the facts right now? What are the facts? What can I focus on? What can I be excited about? And, you know, is this really the end of the world?
Yeah.
I don't know.
I'd say as stuff has, and I mean I've seen it even today, stuff has calmed down a little bit, and it's turned to, oh, this is cool because now it means I know what I'm painting for the next couple of months. Like I'm going to paint Land Raiders, Terminators, and Berserkers. That's what I'm going to paint for the next couple of months because I know they're all going to be in the book, which is great because it's motivation. Like there's been a lot of uncertainty about like, oh, what's the point in even starting to paint stuff like this because it may not be in the book. Now we have a few more of those answers. And as I said back in the reveal section, I think the little bit on like Demon Engines, Land Raiders, Terminators, really nice. They didn't have to do it. Now we have a better idea of stuff that is like safe, which is great because people are thinking about ways because if you are so heavily invested in World Eaters, I don't think many people are going to be like, I'm setting fire to my army. They'll be like, how can I adapt it? It's going to suck that these things are going to have to live on the shelf until we get them back or until I think of another way to use them. But what can I do for now to hobby? Because obviously we all love the hobby. So it's been good to see that change in our Discord, at least. This is the only one I really hang out in. It's been good.
Yeah, and shout out to the folks hanging out in the Red Pat Discord today for like more often than not level-headed takes, and also shout out to all the people who are annoying Jack. I appreciate it. And shout out to everyone who has joined the cult of the Red Oracle, which is what everyone is going to refer to me as now. But yeah, look, okay, I think that kind of covers it on the community reaction. It's been a bit vitriolic.
I've one last. I have one last thing before we move past this. I have seen people go way the other way and start posting potential lists based on the points leaks, saying, "How strong is this going to be? Do you think this is viable?" And I don't really want to go into it because I don't want to start shouting at my camera. But if people watching this video can't tell what's wrong with that, then I don't know what to say. Because we have point values and we have models, and that is it.
Yep. We have the assurance from the wonderful Warhammer community team that the 8 bounds will be the most powerful melee unit in the game. And based off that is, I guess, just as long as you cram as many 8 bound into your list as you can, it's going to win the LVO.
Sure.
So yeah, cool. Don't go writing lists yet. Okay? Just chill. You know, just chill.
Chill.
Right, Jack. Tell me about your reaction. Tell me what you think. In like, I suppose, yeah, let's keep this one a little bit I suppose, concise, I guess, like what
Yeah.
your kind of key points are that different, I suppose, somewhat from everyone else.
So I'll do my initial reaction and then like today, basically, rather than like looking forwards. Today, my opinion is this doesn't necessarily confirm the points leak. I think it confirms those 3 units on the points leak. I don't think it means that the points leak is the whole picture. I mean, I gave a bit of a sneak preview of this earlier, but I don't think it's necessarily the whole picture. I think there's scope to get other units back. Like I'm holding out hope that there is going to be jump out units because I like fast armies. Um, if not, it'll suck, but I'll deal. Like we have plenty of choice. We have some really cool new models. Um, I yeah, like that's it really. I'll be annoyed if HQs and fast stack are restricted that much. But as I realised partway through the day, fast stack being restricted means we get to run blood slaughterers and dreadclaws. So
That's really true. Yeah, I'm excited to start running blood
I'm
slaughters again.
fine with that.
Let me pick your brain on one thing though. Like, as someone who has been a proponent for shooting options in a world leader army, right? There's obviously not many shooting options necessarily on this list. Let's not consider the compendium here, but how do you feel about that? Like, how do you feel about? I'm going to be straight out. How do you feel about losing your vindicators?
Don't know if
You just that was pretty funny because it was like
Land
it's there
Raider.
for a moment.
I'm painting a Land Raider at the moment. I'm painting a second one sometime in this week because I'm not sending it back to you. So so Land Raiders at the moment, and obviously, yeah, if we want to go into it like Forge World, I think we're going to rely on Forge World for shooting options. That's fine. Martial Legacy going away would be nice, but we can go into that if and when it becomes a thing, which it might not be. So, Land Raiders are our shooting option. I'm already going off indicators anyway because they're so unreliable. So.
Fair enough. So, like, I suppose overall, your feelings would be quite positive.
I'm pretty positive because the models look sick.
We'll say, like, in the vacuum, if this is
Yeah,
our roster, like, are you happy with that? Is kind of what I'm trying to get at here.
yeah, I think I would be because above all, I don't like list building to go stale, and this will shake up list building from the last 6-9 months, however long we will have had the codex for. So,
And would you be worried that like maybe there wouldn't be a huge amount of diversity in it given the options that we have, or do you think that there kind of isn't really that many more options than there currently is?
I think it's too early to tell that because I think a lot of our diversity will come with army rules, sub-faction rules, and strats. And I think so I'm reserving judgment basically. I'm not going to be like negative about something that hasn't happened. If that makes sense because it
That
has.
does make sense. Yeah.
And so for me, awesome models, awesome book, and then there's some precedents that I'm pretty happy with, like which we can talk about in a bit. Yeah. What about you? You.
Yeah, no problem. I was gonna say, we might cut away for a second and come back because my take is a little bit longer.
Right.
And I'm going to talk about some different stuff. I'm specifically going to talk about. I think you gave a quite a nice granular view on, we'll say, the army composition, the structure, the plastic involved, and kind of like how things are going to look for a player. I'm going to talk a little bit more about the bigger kind of meta picture and why I think things have happened the way they have and what I think is wrong with that. But yeah, maybe what we're going to do is we'll cut away and we'll have a quick word from our sponsor and then we'll cut back. Okay, we are back, everyone. You probably didn't get a word from our sponsor because we don't have one because we're poor as hell. So if you love the channel, subscribe to our Patreon and let me be able to turn my heating on because it's cold. All right, yeah, but memes aside, right, my take on this whole thing. So Jack did an awesome little segment there about kind of like what he thinks with like the units, the composition for the army, all that kind of stuff. And I'm not really going to echo his sentiment because I kind of feel the same way about a lot of that stuff. Like, in my opinion, it's like, yeah, sure, we're losing diversity of choice, but like, were we really like taking those units anyway? Like, sure, I can't take Havocs anymore. I wasn't fucking taking Havocs anyway. It doesn't really matter. So, like, for me, like, the diversity of choice loss, kind of non-existent, but that's whatever. Like, some people were taking those stuff, and it's annoying. You know, it is a little bit annoying. And overall, I really like everything that's in the book, but I am disappointed by, like, the overall kind of thing. I was hoping for more, and there's a lot of things there that, like, well, sorry, there's a lot of things that aren't there. And that's it, right? Like, I wanted to see a lot of stuff that I guess think a lot of the problem is that over the last while, me and Jamie kind of hyped a lot of stuff into reality, like the Butcher Surgeon, so on and so forth. And like, there was never really any indication that some of these units are actually going to happen. Like the Teeth of Khorne is a particularly good one, right? Loads of people are like, why no Teeth of Khorne? Where Teeth of Khorne? Like, guys, like they haven't been mentioned in anything since like second edition, like.
There's one
Oh,
guy with a heavy bolter in the Black Legion books that is a one
okay.
eater.
Okay, the Black Legion books, which are no longer canon, but fair enough.
They're not what? They're
Yeah,
not
I
canon.
don't think they're. I thought they got taken out of canon. I don't know. It doesn't matter. Let's say whatever. It doesn't
So,
matter right
it doesn't matter, but they're really good. Everyone should read
but
them.
yeah, like it's part of having such a compassionate, or sorry, a passionate, not compassionate, such a passionate and like energetic community that like we got so hyped up for some of these things that it stopped being like a what if and it became like a when for a
Right.
lot of us, right? Which is problematic because when those things don't happen, we get disappointed. When we don't see a blood surgeon, it's disappointing. When we don't see X, Y, and Z, like I really wanted Delvaris to come back. That would have been so sick, and he hasn't, and that sucks. Like, give me a name character, give me something to work with, not Invocatus. So like that's like a little part community fault and a little part GW fault for not managing our expectations. But that's kind of what I'm going to talk about, right? This is like a more meta take on the whole thing and why the release has happened the way it is. Because personally, my firm belief is that this is not at all the way that GW wanted to release the World Leaders as an army. And I think there's a couple of things that point to that. So first of all, since the start, late 8th edition, start of 9th edition, we've heard rumblings of there is a World Leaders Codex. It's coming out. Like, there was even rumors that it was coming out at the end of 8th, right? And I know those rumors came from Chapter Master Valorek, so they don't really mean anything, but they were there, But, like, there's been an expectation that this book is coming, and that kind of started building the excitement. Realistically, the excitement was building ever since the Deck Guard came out, because then there was a precedent. It's like 2 Traitor Legions are here, there's going to be more, right? So we've all been getting hyped and hyped and hyped and blah, blah, blah. And I'm sure that GW wanted to release this army earlier in 9th edition. Like, they don't want an army coming out in the tail end of an edition. It doesn't really work that way. It's not. People are very reserved about actually buying things towards the end of an edition because it makes sense. Like, why are you going to buy stuff at the end of an edition? But obviously, there was a load of things like production issues and COVID, and like there was delay after delay. And it's really only now that we're actually seeing GW start to catch up with their production demand, where it's like, we're seeing things previewed and then they actually come out a month or two later. So that's that. So I think that was a big factor. Now, there have been rumblings that there was production issues with the World Leaders line. I don't know how true those rumors are, but I've heard them floating around multiple times, that there was like a lot of problems with the actual sculpts. And it was kind of a case of the technology actually wasn't up to date with what they were trying to get done, which is like probably a first. But I think there's precedent for that because we saw a big delay with the Accursed Cultists and the Possessed for the Chaos Space Marine release, which were models that I would say are pretty similar to the vibe that is kind of going on in the World Leaders, right? So maybe there was production issues there as well. Like, who knows? This is all complete tinfoil hat theory, but so I think there might have been some problems there. And my personal belief is that they probably wanted to release a lot more models initially because they saw the Deck Guard release and how massively profitable that was, how popular it was. Because the Deck Guard, like, there must be 3 or 4 times more Deck Guard players than there is Thousand Suns players, right? Like, there's so many of those guys hawking around. And, like, they're probably trying to emulate that again for the World Leaders because, like, print money is good. And we didn't really get that. We got like a Thousand Suns-esque release. And a lot of people are wondering why. But there's something more that I want to drill down into. Because if you actually look at the units released, right, they don't make sense at all. Like, these units, as a cohesive whole, do not make sense together in the slightest, right? Where Red Butchers, like the most commonly said thing across any World Leaders forum in the past day. There is, so like, Deck Guard have their Blight Lords. Blight Lords were never a thing before the Deck Guard Codex came out. No one ever heard of them. Thousand Suns have their Scarab Cults, which were not exclusively Terminators before the Codex. They were just Armin's cults. The world leaders have always had the Red Butchers. They are a signature unit to the point that we have a stratagem to make our own unique Terminators in our current book. So why would GW not have them in our book, right? It doesn't actually make sense. And I know people love to be like GW stupid and GW bad, but this is actually like gone past either of those two things. There is no sensible reason.
There are limits to it, right? Like it's just
Yeah, like there is limits to how evil you think GW is, and like there is actually no reason not to make the Red Butchers. Red Butchers would print money. Find me a World Leader player that would not buy a unit of Red Butchers if they came out, right? So the only logical way I can think of justifying there not being any Red Butchers is that there is a problem. Like there is some reason that they can't get them out. Maybe it's a production thing. Maybe it's a backlog thing. Maybe they tried sculpting some and they just couldn't be like molded or whatever. Because like, I mean, I've heard other stuff that apparently Angron had a completely different pose and had to be fully redone because it was too complicated for the mold machine. Like I'm hearing these kind of things about the world leaders and I'm like, okay. And then I'm looking at our like pretty bare bones release and I'm like, all right, that kind of adds up. And then I'm looking at the model selection and I'm like, right, we don't have Terminators. That's pretty weird. We don't have like many generic HQs. That's kind of weird as well. We have Juggernaut guys with no Juggernaut cavalry. Like, hang on. Like that was the moment that I was like, red flag, right? Because I was like, Invocatus and the Juggernaut Lord feel like a Wave 2 release to come out with the Juggernaut Cavalry.
I will say that I think lack of generic HQs is unconfirmed. I think like
That's true. Yeah, that's true. I mean more like we'll say like
well, it's specific.
exactly like the way Deck Guard have a bunch, right?
We got Azrak the Annihilator from Warhammer Plus.
Yeah, he's not in the Codex.
No, I know. Well,
Yep.
not
Can't bring him.
Not that we know.
True. And like his data sheet that comes in the box is just generic Chaos Lord and Terminator armor. So kind of weird that they would.
You can't take, right?
Yeah, that's a weird one. But whatever.
Well, I mean,
yeah, so
yeah.
So like I'm wondering about like where all these units are that like in my mind should be there. And like, you know, why would they hype up all this stuff about the Blood Surgeon and White Dwarf and then not have him release? Like it's things like that, right? Where I'm like, I'm starting to wonder. And I'm looking at the units that we have, and I'm wondering that, like, did they push Invocatus and the Juggernaut Lord out ahead of time so that they could fix other things that broke? And, like, obviously they were always going to push Berserkers and Angron. Like, fair enough. And the Jackals were probably always coming out. But, like, I'm kind of thinking, no Terminators, but two different variants of the same unit? Kind of weird. And if I'm really going to, like, put my second tinfoil hat on over my first tinfoil hat, I'm wondering that were those actually initially two different units? And were they maybe not just spare bits to upgrade the kit? And then they were kind of like, oh shit, stuff's not working. We got to pad this out. What if we take those spare bits and turn them into two different units? Because let's face it, guys, there is really not a lot of difference between those models.
No.
Like, they are real fucking similar to each other. So
I think that possibly gives credence to going back to, I guess, what you said about it's more like a Thousand Suns release. Is we've both heard the rumors. They're sort of whispery rumors at this point. Like they haven't been getting too much traction about having more free access to Khorne Demons to pad out the like sparse release. I've heard that a couple of times, but it's not really been something that's been like widespread, I'd say. And I think if, and it is still if, the points leak is all we're getting, then I would expect to have wider access to Khorne Demons. I don't know what
you would hope so, yeah. And like they've mentioned it themselves in Warcom a few times, but like I get that that's super tinfoil hat theory, but like to me, it's like a justifiable reason why we're not seeing all the things that I thought we should be seeing. Like things I was hoping for, like Delvaris, Triari, Inductee, Red Butchers, Devourers, Blood Surgeons, like all these things that I'm like they are like in our brains as like, yeah, sure, maybe we meme them into reality, but like they were there in the first place, right? So it's kind of difficult to wonder why they're not there. And like I think you have to take all that and be like, cool, maybe they didn't really want things going the way they did. And then you have to stack on top of the fact that they their marketing for the world leaders is also 100% not how they wanted it to go, because Angron leaking fucked them up so bad. So bad.
reckon he was going to be the first reveal. Like,
Yeah, Angron was supposed to be a
when,
huge reveal.
when we got the one berserker, I think we were supposed to get the whole squad, and then I think when we got the whole squad was supposed to be Angron.
Yeah, so Angron leaking sucked for them because so it's a really interesting problem, right? Because what it did was two different things. It meant that they had to stagger out the reveals and put more space in between each reveal. Like we got what, roughly one world leader unit every month. About that, maybe every 3 weeks or so. I don't know off the top of my head.
Stuff, right?
But like, yeah, and which made it feel not great because like we're kind of like, cool, when are we randomly gonna see another unit? Like the only one that was like somewhat thematic was like when they dropped the berserkers on the 8th of the 8th. Like, yeah, cool, nice. Angron like on a random Friday evening dropped because of a leak.
That was in response to the leak. Yeah, I think
Yeah.
they had spread it out across like 6 months instead of the usual
Yep.
like maybe 2 or 3, didn't they? Which
So spacing it out is bad, right? But it's even worse because they must have already known at this point that like it was gonna be pretty bare bones and stripped back, maybe more stripped back than what they wanted. And like you can imagine the marketing team, they're like, oh, this is gonna look even worse than it already was gonna look.
Yeah.
And then because everything's so spaced out, right? People become more impatient. They like it's kind of how it's always gone with Warhammer releases. It's like there's a fine line between managing hype and when you have it spaced out for like the months that they did, it got pretty bad. And then I think people started getting worried, being like, well, we're not seeing a lot of things here, and it's taking ages for stuff to be revealed. And, you know, like the leaks kind of push things out early and all that kind of stuff. So then when things did come around, people were already impatient. And people were kind of already a little bit annoyed. And then when they saw that their favorite unit that they wanted to come into reality was not coming into reality, things got bad, right? Which is kind of where we find ourselves today in this situation where a lot of people are pretty annoyed. And I would say that, like, yep, GW do a lot of things that is kind of pretty dumb. And there's a lot of things about this release that GW have done that is dumb, such as possibly excluding certain units from our book that were in the Chaos Space Marine Codex. Like, there is actually no good reason to do that. Like, that is just stupid. But, like, a lot of things could potentially be going on that we don't know about, like all this like hypothetical production issue stuff, which I don't know if it's real. Let me just caveat that. But like that is like an explanation I can put together in my head and have heard like a couple of like really shadow rumors about, but I don't know how true it is or anything. And like then you have like this horrible marketing nightmare that obviously happened with the leaks, which kind of like made the sparse releases exponentially worse. And we find ourselves where we are today at the tail end of 9th after a million production issues, potentially all the delays from COVID. And yeah, people are very clearly unhappy. And like, let's be real, GW know that people are unhappy about this. Like, there's no question about that. So yeah, I think that's kind of where we find ourselves. And that's my take on why things have happened the way they have.
So,
and I guess like my feeling about it is kind of projected through that, right?
that's fair. So, how do you think they might like not try and fix it? Because I don't think it's necessarily broken, but like, how do you think like a second wave might come into existence? Like, how do you think they'll capitalize on this World Eaters release?
So like that's my hope, and I guess in some ways an expectation. I think it set off a precedent that we've already seen. So the closest comparable thing I can bring this to is the Sisters of Battle release, which happened late 8th edition. And like, you know, they got their battle box, which had a bunch of units in it, and they got their 8th edition codex, which was around for probably about the same amount of time as our codex will be. And then in 9th edition, they got a pretty hefty wave 2. They got Morven Val and the Paragon Warsuits, right? And let me just pitch this to you. Going back to the potential Invocatus pushed out early, wave 2 could have been Invocatus and the Juggernaut Cavalry. It's kind of like Morven Val and the Paragon Warsuits.
Yeah.
Same vibe, different models. But that's whatever. So they got a bunch of stuff. They got some tanks. They got like so many characters, like the Banner Bearer and all the other stuff. And they got the
the
initiates as well, their version of the Scouts or whatever. like their wave 2 was almost as big as their wave 1. So we could see the same thing happen for the world leaders.
Yeah.
Is this copium? Yes. Is this hopium? Also yes. I'm in a bad way, people. Like I need something. But like I can see it happening. Like it's not the only army that's had a wave 2. Wave 2s are really common in like a lot of things now because they understand that people do not have that much money, and
Well,
it's often a lot better if like you buy things in 2 waves, and people will probably spend a lot more money doing that as well. Like if you look at AOS, basically every army that comes out now is a double wave army, you know? Like it's just how they do it.
big love
Votan
later. There's
Votan is almost certainly a wave 2 as well coming out next year, you know? Cool. Like that's kind of where I hope it's going to go in the future. So I hope we get a really nice expansion midway through 10th, which has like the Juggernaut boys, bunch of characters. Give me Delvaris, please. Maybe we'll see the 8-bound blend back into a single unit. At which point I will be vindicated, and then I actually will be the Red Oracle. If I've called that shit, like big brain. But yeah, look, that was a pretty lengthy rambling and like so much tinfoil hat here. I'm going to take the hat off. And like, please, whatever you do, take away from this what you can, but like, do not take my word as gospel, even though I am the Oracle. But like, that aside, I don't know if any of this stuff is real. This is just my theories and my take on the whole thing. So don't go telling everyone that like the Red Pat said this and they said it's definitely real. Like, no, it's just my ideas.
well,
But yeah, Jack, what do you think?
or do, and people will come to hate watch us, and that still views.
Yeah, true. Actually, yeah, tell your friends to hate watch us and subscribe to our Patreon. Give us hate money.
Like, subscribe, comment, all of that. Hate watch most.
Yeah, 100%. So what's your hope for? Like, I mean, do you have necessarily a hope for what's to come, or are you kind of like satisfied with the way things are, or like, give me your brain power on this.
So, without wanting to sound pretty hippie about it, I'm living in the moment. I like the models. I like the cover art. I will be a little bit disappointed if it's limited, but as I've already said, new list building challenges, fine with that, because that's honestly one of the parts of the game that I enjoy more. That and playing, obviously, but like those are the 2 bits of the game that I really enjoy. So I'll be fine with what we get, whatever we get, to be honest, because it will change list building. Regardless of what we get, it will change list building from what we have now, because we probably won't have the Black Rune, we may not have the Priest, all of that. Change list building, that's enough for me. That was enough for me for the Chaos Space Marine Codex. Even though our rules are shite, that'll be enough for me for the new book. What does really excite me for the future is that we've got our own book. Like, stop for a second knee-jerking and think about what that means in terms of our Legion. Previously, we've always been in the Codex Chaos Space Marines, which obviously we are one of 8 legions now. It's been varying numbers. There's been varying sub-factions. There's been whatever. All of those other sub-factions, pretty much all of those other sub-factions, are balanced around being able to take Psykers. We have never been able to take Psykers. Neither has Brazen Beasts, but I don't know how widespread they've been or how recent they are. Neither Khorne, yeah, fine, but we have never been able to take Psykers. We're in a new book on our own that is going to be balanced around not having Psykers, and it won't be an afterthought have +1 strength. It will be an actual meaningful, hopefully, choice that they've made, is that our book needs to be balanced with no presumed access to Psykers. We're not going to be able to heal, we're not going to be able to res unless we get fucking Berserk Surgeons, maybe.
Yeah, we're living in a vacuum now, like a healthy vacuum, right?
So there's not going to be anything that assumes you have Master of Possession, bring a Terminate back a turn, or giving your possessed a 4-up invuln, or whatever, or fucking Prescience, or Warp Time, any of that. It's the rules designers now know that we aren't going to have access to that, so they don't have to worry about any potentially broken interactions with psychic powers. For me, that is great, because it means they'll finally start looking at how to make us a bit more than haha chain axe go burr. Some people love that, that's fine.
Hey man, that's my vibe. Like
I personally really enjoyed the army at the end of 8th, because it was really nuanced, because of all the combat phase movement and all the janky shit you could pull. I really enjoyed that, and I've been fairly open on Discord about my like kind of hopes. I don't really want advance and charge. I don't really like advance and charge. I've talked to death about that. I think like out of phase movement, out of phase ways to fight. One of those two, or both of those two, but one of those two would be really nice, particularly the movement thing, because I think if you can min max that a lot, and I would enjoy the challenge of trying to do that. So yeah, the big thing for me is balancing around not like assuming no psychers, which is a first. Like they've never done that for us before because we've always been part of a book that has had psychers in it, even if we didn't have access to them. And I think that's I would say like I think that's possibly a problem that the Black Templars have had in the past. Obviously, they've had their own book, but like it a lot of the like data sheets in the base Chaos Space Marine book, not Chaos, Loyalist Space Marine book, like there's an eye on the psychers, right, and the psychic powers and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
so when it comes to the Black Templar stuff, like the Black Templars is a bad example because Sword Brethren are trash, but like that's the parallel I draw, right? Is that but also keeping in mind that we're getting our own book, not a supplement. So I think it's got massive potential, and so I am hopeful, and that might be hopium as well, or copium, or whatever, or both.
No, I don't think so. I think there's a lot to be said about the fact that like you bring up a really excellent point that really I haven't seen a single other person kind of talk about that, and it's really important. Like for people who enjoy playing the game for the kind of competitive aspect or just the general like balanced aspect of the game. Like we will see unparalleled focus on our army because it is now living in its own little environment. So won't be balanced around psychers. Will be focused on the fact that it is just a combat army with no guns. Like that's another thing. We're not focusing on psychers. We're not focusing on shooting. How is that going to work in the game environment? You know,
because we are going to be the first. So like there are one phase shooting armies, but we're going to be the first one phase combat army if the leaks are true and we have like 4 las cannons in an army kind of thing, and that's
because like Black Templars will be able to bring way more
Redemptors and stuff, can't they?
Yeah. I guess technically we can bring Hellbrutes,
but we will essentially be a one phase combat army. I guess, mate. Yeah.
There's all the Forge World stuff as well, though.
Okay.
I get where you're coming from. The emphasis is on a one phase combat army, right? In the way that like Thousand Sons are kind of one phase psychic army, like.
But
that kind of parallel.
Shooting as well, but
yeah, they've got okay shooting, but like
Thousand Sons is better parallel to draw than like, for example.
So I think we are going to move into that really interesting time where we will have like just a higher degree of balance around what we are, which is going to be hopefully a lot more rewarding.
Yeah, the thing now that I'm thinking through this live, the thing that would concern me about that is that they might take a few attempts to get it right,
Yeah.
Because we saw Black Templars didn't like set the world on fire. Black Templars are weird just because they're Black Templars.
Hot take, I think Black Templars are pretty good, but you know, so at the end of the day, the reality of the situation is that like a combat army is always just going to be harder to play than a shooting army. Like that's just how it is.
They've done Blood Angel as well, but it's a different vibe, isn't it? Because they're fast. And I don't think
like the Blood Angels vibe is super fast. It's just a different thing.
Anyway, before we get too off track, I think that is why I'm remaining optimistic. Is like it's enough to tide me over because it's list building changes and it'll probably be like fairly significant playstyle changes even from what we're at now. And going forwards, the book is going to be designed, and then for 10th or 11th or whatever the fuck, it's going to be redesigned, but with combat in mind, and like with us as an army being internally balanced. And I'm really excited for that, like for the long haul, if that makes sense.
It does make sense, yeah. I think you bring up a lot of good points that maybe in the heat of the moment, the day that it is, people aren't necessarily thinking about right now. And it is good to kind of take that step back and think about those things, about the super easy to focus on the negatives. We talked about this in our latest Chill Game Learn, which if you haven't watched already, go give it a watch. It's really good. But we talked about hyper focusing on the negatives. That's kind of what a lot of people are doing. And I think you've brought up a lot of really good points about things we can look forward to. I guess like my take is a lot more hopium on the future. Like hopefully these things will happen.
Yeah,
And yours is like yours
yeah,
is realistic. It's like
I,
these things
I,
are happening.
I mean, I wouldn't say yours is hopium. I'd say yours is a bit more short-term focused, whereas mine is like really long view rather than.
I guess, but I also see yours as being more realistic, where it's like, well, these things are happening. And like let's not mince words here. It's still going to be a tough army to play. It's still going to take a competent general to do well with it, and that's probably a good thing. Kind of, I don't know. It depends on your take on that. If you want to just like cheese the meta, probably not a good thing. But
I hope we're hard to play with a couple of really like one, maybe two really strong units. Like
yeah,
kind of like Chaos Space Marines now, because I'm enjoying playing Chaos Space Marines now.
yeah, for sure. I hope it doesn't change like drastically from where it is right now, because it's nice.
Um, yeah. Okay. I think we've probably rambled so much for this being a quick 20-minute video.
Yeah, but I mean, right, look, it's the day of days, right? We're never going to have an initial World Leaders reveal chat again. Yeah. This is the only time it's ever going to happen. Yeah. But yeah, let's wrap this one up for now, I think. So, look, we talked about a lot today. We talked about how awesome the new models are, because they are pretty dope. Like, really, really cool. Hasn't been a bad model revealed yet so far, to be honest. Like, everything looks great, and it's going to look even better in white and blue. And look, best of all, if you follow the painting tutorials on the red path. But yes, we talked about the models. We talked about how the community is kind of processing the news of the reveals, what it might mean, how it kind of ties in with the leaks, if it does tie in. And then we kind of talked about our own viewpoints, kind of like why I think things have happened the way they have, big tinfoil hat time, and then kind of you gave your views on sort of like the more like microscopic focus on the units and stuff, and then talking about the future, like what we hope to see and all that. So it's been a really fun discussion. It's one that's kind of being, I suppose, played out across the internet, across the world right now, which is awesome. Like, let's face it, it's pretty freaking cool that we can all be so passionate about playing little toy soldiers. And like, let's face it, folks, it might not be the exact thing that you wanted, but the World Leaders are getting their own book, and that is something that yeah, when I joined the hobby, like 4 or 5 years ago, and I started playing World Leaders, I was like so desperate and hopeful that someday we would get a codex. And I think that if you took me back to that moment and like said all this stuff to me back then, I'd be like so crazy happy. And I'm trying to kind of recapture that and just like, get back into that spirit. But I hope everyone's kind of found this a really interesting video. Maybe a little bit of a different take to what everyone's kind of saying. It's probably less of a, not like a less common thing, but like we've had some time to kind of process this and think about it. And I think part of us has been accepting that this might happen for quite a while. So we've kind of had a little bit of a chance to get our heads around this. But why don't you let us know down below what you think about everything? And it's totally okay if you are really unhappy about this. It doesn't matter. That's your opinion. Like, you are completely entitled to that view.
And tell us why, please. Like,
yeah,
we want
absolutely.
to viewpoints possible. Please don't meme me, but like,
no, meme the shit out of Jack. Like, let us know. We want to get that conversation going. We want to keep it going. Keep that excitement, be it good or bad, and all that good stuff. So, if you haven't already, please subscribe. There's obviously going to be a lot more interesting content coming out of us in the next while as the World Leader train starts to roll out of the station. Give the video a like, share it on all your platforms, all the usual good YouTube stuff that you know what to do. If you really love us, we do have a Patreon that you can go to support us. And most importantly of all, join the Discord. Join the ever-present, ever-rolling live chat. And you can actually speak to us, I suppose, on a kind of closer level where we're not talking to you, we're talking with you. So it's been a fun one. Jack of the Gal Vorbak, it's been great having you. Enjoy the kind of, I suppose, latent fumes from your burning army in the background. I will be going now to begin the color scheme for my word bearers. You'll see a video on the Gal Vorbak coming out next week. But until then, folks, it's been real. Stay healthy, stay safe, and kill a bird.